Hey church, I wanted to take just a little bit of time as we continue to live in this chaos of quarantine and shelter in place and staying away from people, just to process something very quickly with you as a warning and an encouragement. One of the things that I've said before, and you've probably heard before, is that one of the devil's greatest strategies is isolation. And we are in a time of isolation. We are being told to isolate ourselves. And when we isolate ourselves, one of the reasons why it's the devil's greatest strategy is because when we're left to ourselves in isolation, we're broken off from community that can hold us accountable, that can encourage us, that can keep us focused on Jesus. As well as when we're in isolation, boredom arises. And so when the government said, hey, we're going to start shutting down, one of my fears in knowing that we're going to be isolated and bored is the opportunity for us to engage in sin will increase. And in particular, I know the effects of pornography increases hugely during isolation. In fact, studies have already shown that the traffic on pornographic websites has just increased tremendously. And so this is both an issue for accessibility, but sin in general, when we go to isolation, it can create opportunities to go into sinful thoughts, sinful actions. It can draw us to very dangerous places. And we see this extremely clear in 2 Samuel 11. And many of you have heard this story before. It's the story of David and Bathsheba. But there's a few things that I just want to point out really quick as a warning to us so that we don't engage in that sin and so that we can find ways to connect. Because first of all, in 2 Samuel 11 it says, when the men were off to war, when they had gone off to war, David stays behind. So there's an opportunity for him to do what he's supposed to do. For us, there's the work, the busyness, the stuff that we have to get done regularly. This is David's responsibility, but instead everybody else went, which made him isolated. Well, from there, what happens next? He gets bored. He's bored, and they say he's roaming around on the top of his palace, and he sees this woman who's bathing, and he says, oh, I'm bored. Look at her. I'm interested. And then because he's king, he has access. He's king, he gets what he wants. So between isolation, boredom, and access, again, particularly with pornography, but in all sin cases, when we isolate ourselves, we tend to find ourselves getting bored, find ourselves lingering around things that we shouldn't, find ourselves engaged in mental opportunities that then provide an access to engage in sin. So here's what I want to do. I want to warn you in areas where you find yourself or know yourself to be tempted to put up barriers to limit your access to those things. So if you're struggling with viewing stuff online, tell your husband, tell your wife, hey, this is a problem for me and I need you to limit my access to the computer. I need you to give me some level of accountability. But outside of just that issue, I want to encourage you and challenge you, for the sake of the tension of isolation and boredom and access, to reach out to your Christian brothers and sisters, to tell them, hey, here's where I know that I can fall trap to engaging in the temptations around you. Can you check in on me? Can you pray for me? Can you text me a verse regularly? Church, I believe this wholeheartedly, that all you listening, you want to be that for somebody else. I believe that. You're listening now because you want to be that for somebody else. But we hesitate to then ask somebody else to be that for us. But if we're a community of people that are like, yes, I would love to provide some encouragement, some challenge, to be a listening ear to somebody else, if we're all saying that, but we're not willing to ask for that, that draws us again to isolation and boredom and access. And so in this time, be cautious, be aware, set things in place, reach out to your brothers and sisters, reach out to people in your life that can encourage you away from the temptations that will present themselves in this time.